I don't believe we ever had any conflicts over characters. In
Right.
general, if we have characters that I don't like some of his character, he doesn't like some of mine, it's easy. He just takes his and I take mine, and we let them running against it. I mean, they are complete people. They are
quite
going to
true.
interact.
Not quite true. Horace Berry was a flat villain. till
That's
that.
true. That's true.
by the second book.
I don't mean by that we don't sometimes enhance each other's characters, but I think the question was one of actual conflict of characters. I don't think we've ever had that kind of a.
Yeah, I was just trying to find out, what do you do when my brother is absolutely wrong?
One of you has the veto.
You before
And it
you
might
start.
be him, but you got to decide.
Yeah, before you start the
Uh-oh.
work, you decide which one of you is going to get the final say. By the way, in
Right.
5 novels, of which 4 have been bestsellers, I don't believe that veto has ever been exercised.
No.
And the reason for that is because you shouldn't collaborate if it's likely to have to be exercised.
Right. There's an implied amount of trust there that
Well,
this
it's
guy
not
knows
just
what he's
trust.
doing.
If Nevin doesn't like something I've done, there's a reason. Now, if what he thinks should have been done may not be correct. That may not be the right way to go.
Right.
That may not fit the plot. I tend to be very much plot-driven, not character-driven so much. Aristotle writes about the 2 kinds of stories: the story of plot, and the story of characterizations. And I tend to be very much the plot-driven one. It may be that I've got it wrong on something, but if we're going to tell the story, it's got to go somewhere. If Larry doesn't like the way I did it, there's some reason for that. And the same in the other direction. If I don't like something he did, there's some reason for that. I don't start with the assumption that he's just trying to make a mess, and he doesn't think I'm trying to ruin the book. Now, that's in contrast to a pair of famous collaborators Larry and I know, who one of whom once tried to spend an hour telling us that the way to work together is to fight. Larry didn't have to listen to that lecture. We were at a party and I was trapped against a wall and could not get away, while Larry kept going off and gleefully bringing me drinks and running for his life.
We were at a 3-day party, and I could sketch the booth we were at. It ran one end up against a wall, and George Clayton Johnson had Jerry trapped, and I was free.
Now, I've written 3 mystery novels with my wife, Tanana Reeve, and we've also written a couple of movie scripts and a television script together.
American Award winner, right?
Yeah, American Book Award winner.
American
Yes.
Book Award winner. Yeah.
And we won the NAACP Image Award
Right.
for one of
That's
those
right.
books. And we had a rule before we started working together, and it was a rule that had to do with our marriage in general, but it became extremely important in writing because she writes very much from the character point of view, and I definitely write more from the plot point of view. So there are some conflicts. So the rule is that we can fight, but the relationship itself is never on the line. That way things can get a little bit heated without anybody ever suggesting that if this argument is not resolved, it's going to have something to do with our marriage, something with our relationship. And that way it can get pretty hot sometimes because both of us are very, very opinionated.
And clearly determined.
I don't think I am less opinionated than most people.
No.
Let's think about that for a minute.
I did not expect you to argue with that. But I don't ever recall getting into that kind of argument over a story about just plain opinion on something. If there's something I didn't see, I want to know it. I have sometimes thought, yes, that would lead to an interesting scene, but we don't need the scene for the book, and
Right.
it's already too long. And in that sense, there might be arguments over opinion.
I remember an argument during Lucifer's Hammer, during which at one point you said, if you don't like it, throw it away. And I dropped a stack of your text into the wastebasket. and then asked you why the senator cared enough about murdering the main character to risk the stronghold. And at that point, we backed up right to the beginning
Yeah.
and inserted the atomic plant.
Yep. Yep. That's true. There have been a couple of places where we look like it turns out perhaps we were headed for jumping over a cliff.
Yeah,
And-
Jerry was following a theory. He was illustrating a historical theory, and the result was going to be a story that didn't end but tapered off.
Yeah. And that wasn't right.
My brother will sometimes do things which, at the time, drives me absolutely nuts. He'll be like, why are they having this conversation? This doesn't make sense. What's going on here? And he'll bug me. I'll just be like, it's one sentence. Move on. We've got, 500 pages left before the deadline's due and so
one
on.
sentence is always worth arguing
Yeah.
over.
Amen. That's what I'm talking about.
You betcha.
And
That's
we,
what I'm talking about.
we were driving to Montreal, basically 3
To get
days
work done.
To get work done. 3 days of hell drive. And we must have argued through 3 states for this one sentence. But by the time we were done, we had a scene that was one of the funniest. Every time I read it, I just laugh my head off.
What was the
as he
sentence?
The sentence, at this point, I don't really remember, but essentially it was a argument where a non-believer is asking a rabbi why he is having so much difficulty accepting converts. And every time she says, okay, well, you've got 15 million people who want to join your religion. Well... And then, okay, you've got 1.5 million people who want to join your religion. Well, and then finally it just keeps on going down and down and down. And it started off with, why would she be curious about this question, and how come he would have a problem with it? And I just said, because he's religious, let's move on. And my brother didn't accept that. He said, we have to get down to it. And what was one sentence turned into a 3-page argument and discussion that was the funniest thing by the time you're done.
Cool.
Which I will not give you the punchline because I think my publisher would kill me if I did.
All right. Fair enough.
Jerry and I spent one long dinner arguing over the last 4 words in a novel called Footfall.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, with your tapering off story, when David Hartwell of Tor, if you don't know, he's a very well-known editor.
Yeah, he
3 times Hugo
spent
Award winner.
$500,000 on a book about a chicken.
I wish he would spend that much. I would change the title of our book to something with a chicken if we can get that much money out of him. Anyways, the same thing with the Eitan and I, when we originally pitched our very first novel to him, we had a sort of tapering off ending. And he said, no, plot, drama, that's not the way it happens. It's gotta have a little bit more pizzazz to it. And he made us change the end of it, which we were fine with because he bought it.
Well, the interesting part of the way we finally ended Footfall is we working together on the last scene in the same room. And he'd write something, and I'd write something. He'd write something, and I'd write something, and I'm banging away on this thing, and we're both about to go into chain Stokes breathing. And I finished this thing, and I said, "Look at that." And Niven looks at it, and he says, "I can improve that."
It was the other way around, Jerry.
All right.
Remember?
I guess it was. All right. Yeah, I
It was
said,
the
yeah,
other
I
way
guess
around.
I said I can improve that. And he said, how? And I wrote the end.
Right.
Yes.
It,
Do you remember the 4
It-
words you argued over?
Yes. It was Dawson, the senator, about to set his foot on the herdmaster's chest, and that's the way I ended it. Set his foot on the herdmaster's chest. Jerry wrote the end, and we banged each other on the back and went off to dinner.
yeah.
And over dinner, Jerry says, he's not the herdmaster anymore. And I said, I'm willing to let it stand, but we'll think of something. And by the time we got back, it was the herdmaster's advisor's chest.
Yeah.
He's been demoted.
Yeah. Because the senator is now the herdmaster.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, I'd forgotten that detail. I tend to forget how stories were constructed once they're done and out.
I tend to remember for some reason.